QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021. Tax line mapping, format tax, and adjusting entry Excel worksheet. Let's get into it with Intuit's QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021. Here we are in our S-Corp test file. We currently have the open windows open. You can open the open windows by going to the view dropdown, selecting the open windows list. In prior presentations, we've been setting up our chart of accounts to focus in on the mapping of that chart of accounts so that it can then be exported to tax software directly from QuickBooks to the tax software. We then entered the data. We exported that data to our tax software being Lacerte in this case. Lacerte, a tax software owned by Intuit, the same owners of QuickBooks. We populated our information directly from Intuit. Now we want to take a look at a worksheet to reconcile any problems from the data transfer and to reconcile between the book basis and the tax basis. So in other words, down here at this point in time on the tax return, after just having entered the data directly from QuickBooks to Lacerte, we're at $112,500. If we take a look at the program, and I go to the reports drop down and go to the company and financial, take a look at the profit and loss, changing the dates from 01/01/19 to 12/31/19, we are at the 100,000. So we want to be able to reconcile that difference. Now you might be able to do it down here just simply with making the adjustments, printing this out and showing the reconciliation adjustments. You have the M1 adjustments and the Schedule K adjustments on the return. I prefer to do that in Excel so we can kind of formally write that thing out so that if there's problems in the future, we could see what the reconciliation is. Therefore, we exported the trial balance from QuickBooks to Excel so we can make our worksheet by going to the reports dropdown, company and financial, accounting and taxes, trial balance. And here's our Excel worksheet 01/01/19 to 12/31/19. We exported this then to Excel, and now we're going to build our adjusting entry worksheet from it. So here's what we have exported. We're basically going to make it look something like this. We want to convert it to something like this. Now you might simply use a template like this and copy and paste the trial balance into this section, or you might just reformat your sheet as you export it. We'll do this fairly quickly since this is not an Excel course, but we just want to see how we can basically make an Excel worksheet for this to basically work with our Lacerte file. I'm going to start off by making this a little bit larger. I'm going to increase the size to we're at 130. Notice we have different font sizes, so I'm going to change the font size. I'm going to choose the standard setting over here and just format paint the entire worksheet so it's at this Calibri and 11. So I'm going to go to the home page, clipboard, paintbrush the entire thing. There we have it. Now I'm gonna remove some cells we don't need. We don't need these top two lines. So I'm gonna select row 1 and row 2, right click on those rows and delete them. Then down here we do not need this total row, so we don't need anything in row A really. So I'm gonna select the entire row A, or column A I should say, and right click on column A and delete it. I don't need the totals down here, so I'm gonna remove the totals. I'm gonna select 35, right click on that line and delete it. So this is what we need here. So now I'd like to make these numbers negative because I want to represent negative or credits with negative numbers. So I'm going to right click on these. I'm going to copy them. I typically like to move them over to another cell just to make sure I don't mess anything up. And I'm going to paste them 1, 2, 3, or paste them, not 1, 2, 3, paste them special. Right click, paste special. And then I'm going to go down here to subtract. So I'm going to paste it and subtract, meaning adding a subtraction sign, reverse the signs. Then I'm going to copy that. That looks right, so I'm going to copy it. I'm just going to paste it right over the top of what's currently in column D. And there we have it. I'm going to remove what I did over here because we no longer need it. Right click and delete that. Then I'm going to select the entire worksheet, and I'd like to make these bracketed numbers negative, and I'd like to have commas and whatnot and format my numbers. So I'm going to right click here, edit the worksheet, and then I'm going to go to the currency. We're going to remove the dollars, and then I'll keep the pennies. I want the negative numbers to be bracketed and red, so I'm going to say OK, and that'll do that to this entire row over here. So I'm going to add a little bit more space on this side, grabbing column A and dragging it out. I'm going to pull these over to, so I can put my cursor on them, put my cursor on the edge of the cell and drag it over, or I can right click and cut it and paste it over here, right click and paste, or I can use the key functions for that, selecting these. Control X is cut, and then Control V is paste. I'm going to make this a little bit larger so it can handle that. I'm going to say Control X, Control V, Control X, Control V, and select these two and Control X and Control V. Then I'll sum them up to see that we still line up to debits minus the credits should equal 0 now. Trusty sum formula down below, summing up this entire column. And that, I don't think I got the whole column there. Let me double click on it. Yeah, I'm missing a few numbers. So let's see if I can just pull this up to here. So we'll sum up the entire row or column. There we have it. That's going to be the total debits and credits. Total debits and credits. Okay, so then I'm going to add a couple rows up top for the headers. So I'm going to select row 1 and 2, right click on those rows and insert. And then I'm going to call this the adjusted or unadjusted trial balance, or unadjusted trial balance. And then I'm going to delete column C. I don't need that skinny column. Right click and delete it. And then I'm going to say these are the adjusting entries, and then this is going to be the adjusted trial balance here. And then I'm going to make these a little bit wider so they can fit the name and everything in there. And then I'll select these three. I'm going to center them. Let's make them a different color, black and white. I'll typically make them for the headers. I'm going to select the entire worksheet now. I'm going to make it all bold. I like the whole thing to be bolded. So it's all bolded. And then I'm going to sum up. This equals the sum of this column plus this column, B plus C. And therefore, if there's a debit for like 1,000, it'll increase the total. If there's a credit, it'll decrease the total. So hold on a second. If there's a credit, it'll decrease the total. So it looks like that. And then let's autofill that all the way down. Put our cursor on the fill handle and drag that all the way down to here, not including the total. So that looks good. And then I usually make this center column blue because that'll just help my eye to go to it when I need it to post something. So I'm going to right click this and I'm going to make it blue. So, and usually I go to this more colors thing and then I go to this blue right there because that's where the Excel is Fun guy did when I was, so I watched the Excel is Fun guy and he does that, uses that color. I'm going to select the whole thing now. I would like grid lines on it. So I'm going to go to the Home tab, Font Group, and put some grid lines on this thing. So that would be the adjusting entries, typical kind of adjusting entry worksheets. Now I want to do the same thing for like the tax side of things now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend we're starting here. Now I'm going to do the tax adjustments, tax entries, and then this is going to be the tax trial balance. So trial balance for taxes. I'll select these two columns because I want them to have the same formatting as these two. So I'm going to go to the Home tab, Clipboard, Format Paint, and I'll format these two columns so they look the same. And then I'll do the same formula here, but now I'm just going to copy this line and this line. So I'm going to say this equals the sum of this and enter. And then I'll copy this on down. So we'll copy this on down. And so there we have that. I'm going to stop before I get to the totals. I shouldn't have this on the totals, but we'll get back to that in a second. So there we have that. So now we're going to say these are our adjusting entries. We're not going to have many. And then once you have it adjusted, then we have the tax entries. This will be the difference between the book and the tax that we really want to reconcile when we go into our tax return here. So we want to have a formal kind of reconciliation between what it is on the books and for the taxes. So that's going to be our general worksheet. If I go down to the bottom, then my debit and credit section, I'm gonna say that I'd like to copy this across, the 0 across. So that sums up each of the columns. And then what I'd like to say is use our conditional formatting. I like to do this tricky formatting. Go into the Home tab, Style, and I'm going to hit the drop down. I'm going to say, hey, look, if this number is greater than 1, make it negative because rounding could make it something off by a few pennies, but it shouldn't be off by more than like $1. So I'm going to say make it red if it is. So if it goes to 2, then it turns red. And then I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to say, let's do that conditional formatting. If it goes less than -1, I also want you to make it red. So let's test that. Okay. So if it goes to -2, red. Undo. And then if it's between -1 and 1, so I'm going to say if it's between then those two numbers being -1 and 1, we don't want you to be red then, we want you to be green because that's good. Green is good. So we're going to say green is good. That's the one for green. Okay, then we also want to say I want to be able to see net income. So net income is then going to be calculated as the sum of everything from the on the income statement, which includes right here returns and allowances, everything under retained earnings on down. Everything under retained earnings down. Credits are actually income, the way we have it set up here, because the credits, the negative numbers are income. So that's income of 100,000. That ties out to what's on our profit and loss in QuickBooks, 100,000. So that looks like it's correct. I like to make the middle of this I like to mark the middle of this, the equity section, with blue. So these are the 3 equity accounts. I'll right click on them typically and make them like a blue color just to show that that's the middle. And so below that is our income statement. Then I'll copy this across. So we'll see the income accounts being affected for all sections here. So we have the 100,000 going across. So then I want to add some columns to the left for our journal entries. So I'm going to put my cursor on A1, 2, 3, 4. I think we need something like that. Right click and insert some columns to the left. And then I'm going to basically say that we want this to be the description, or let's say account. And we could do that here too as well. Put this as the accounts on this side and make this black and white again. So we'll say this is going to be black and white. And then we're going to have accounts here. And then we're going to have debits and credits. And then I'll make this accounts a bit larger so we can fit accounts there. I'll make this column a little bit smaller just as a space between the two things. And then we'll center this one. I'm going to go center and then highlight these. Let's make it black and white once again. Missed the black. And then we're going to go ahead and make this blue. This whole section, let's right click on it and make it blue. And then we'll put some grid lines on it. And so there we have it. Now we have our standard kind of worksheet looking. So we basically built the worksheet similar to this one here, right? We got a similar kind of worksheet, and now we can do our adjusting entries and tax entries into this worksheet. So we'll use this worksheet in the future to put those in place. Note that we're going to be adding accounts, like you can see down here, some of these adjusting entries. Now we're going to try to break out between these K1 and M1 kind of adjustments for our reconciling balances to be able to understand what the difference is between the book and the tax income that we will be taking a look at. But this is the basic kind of format, and you can put it together once you do it a few times fairly quickly. Let's just check the spelling of it. So assets I misspelled. Depre, that's okay. Ignore miscellaneous, put a period there. All right, if you insist. Entries, okay. And then doubtful, okay. So there we go. Set up. All right, so that we'll use that in future presentations.